Welcome in to the Sports Stove Podcast. We are live, and tonight we are doing a special UFC edition of the Sports Stove Podcast. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by UFC heavyweight Harry Hunsucker. He's going to be with us for a couple minutes, and we're going to talk with him about his fight against Bam Bam Tuivasa just a few weeks ago. And then we'll also talk about what's ahead for his UFC future, and excited about having him on again with us. He's been on the podcast once before, several weeks ago after his Dana White Contender Series fight. And of course, now he has been in the UFC. So we're going to be talking to him all about that debut that he had, and the dogs like to talk about it as well. But we're also going to be previewing the UFC on ABC's fight night that's coming up, Vettori versus Kevin Holland, and we'll be giving you the picks on the main cards there for that fight. Of course, a lot of UFC excitement is ahead this weekend. Saturday will be Vettori versus Holland. Next weekend is Whitaker versus Gastelum, and then on April the 24th, UFC 261, headlined by Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. 3 title fights on that UFC 261 card. Zhang Weili, Rose Namajunas will be fighting, as well as Valentino Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade. That one's a loaded card. Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman fighting on there. Anthony Smith, Jimmy Crute, Alex Oliveira, Randy Brown. It's a loaded and stacked card. UFC 261 on April the 24th. But tonight, it's all about looking ahead to this Saturday and the card there that, again, will be on ABC. The second time the UFC has been on ABC. This card will have 3 fighters debuting in the UFC, have 15 total fights if none get canceled. 4 fights have already been canceled leading up to this fight card, but they still have a full stacked card with 15 total fights on there as well. And in a few minutes, we will give you our predictions, our picks, and our preview for the main card fights there on the UFC on ABC. Like I said, in just a moment, we'll be joined by UFC heavyweight Harry Hunsucker. But first, I want to let you know that tonight's live Sports Stove podcast is being brought to you by Blue Coolers. Blue Coolers has been called by some the Yeti Killers. And these are coolers that you have to check out. If you like being in the outdoors, fishing, camping, hiking, whatever it may be, now is the time for you to go get yourself a Blue Cooler. They have a 55-quart cooler that I'm telling you is worth every single penny. It has a 10-day ice retention along with a 5-year warranty. It is 5-star approved as well by previous customers, so they're definitely someone you want to check out. We are posting a link to Blue Coolers in our comment section. We are also posting that link on the podcast notes. If you go later to the podcast, you can see that there as well. Then we're also sponsored by Skull Candy. And Skull Candy has been with us now for a while. If you need headphones, you need earbuds, true wireless earbuds, you need to get them from Skull Candy. Again, we're going to put the link for that in the comment section of this video if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. And we're going to turn that off. We're going to get that going for you. But nonetheless, those are available for you. If you click on the links that we've put in the comment section, then you'll be able to get those products that you need, as well as support the Sports Stove podcast by using those links. They'll know that we sent you as well. And both of those products, Blue Coolers and Skull Candy, both well worth the investment there. And again, I mean, I'm telling you, these Blue Coolers blow my mind. They are comparable to the other name brands, but the quality that's there. And now this is the time of year to get them, right? You got ball games that'll be coming up here in the summer. If you're at the baseball field or in the fall, you go ahead and get your cooler now. Get that, 10-day ice retention. Hold that ice for 10 days. That's quite the deal as well. You're watching the Sports Stove podcast live. This is our special MMA edition. In just a moment, we'll be joined by UFC heavyweight Harry Hunsucker. And we'll also be giving you the preview and our picks for UFC on ABC 2, which is Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland. It should be a pretty decent card as well. This is a fight card that is, it originally, of course, Darren Till was supposed to be on this card fighting Marvin Vettori, but he had a broken collarbone and could not be in the fight. And so Kevin Holland steps up. He is just 3 weeks off of his, not even that. I think it's 17 days since his last fight. A very discouraging loss to Derek Brunson, one that he has gotten a lot of flack over, the way that he fought and the things that he did there. But nonetheless, Kevin Holland steps up. And he's ready to go against Marvin Vettori. He seems definitely excited about the opportunity to come back and kind of build back up on his name after all the harsh criticism that he took after the Derek Brunson fight, because those 5 fights in 2020, everybody was applauding him. Everyone was encouraging him. Everyone was on board with Kevin Holland. But that fight against Brunson was such a letdown. And, it was one of those things where you look at it and you go, disappointment as a fan to see that fight and how it went down as well. We're going to go ahead and get started on the previews, and then once Harry Hunsucker is here, we'll bring him in. He should be with us any moment now. And, of course, Harry Hunsucker, he had his UFC debut just a few weeks ago against Bam Bam Tuivasa. He stepped in on 4 days' notice to take that fight. And it's been one of those situations where, it didn't go his way in that fight, but it provided an opportunity for him then to get a future in the UFC. He also took a Dana White Contender Series fight against Jared Vanderaa on 2 days' notice. He didn't win that one either, but I mean, goodness, you give him 2 days' notice on that fight, 4 days' notice against a guy like Bam Bam Tuivasa. You can only expect so much from him. So we're excited to talk with him about what is ahead there for Harry Hunsucker. So hopefully he'll be with us any minute now. The wonders of live broadcasts is you got to fill that time. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the previews and the picks and the things that are going on there in the UFC on ABC2. Again, today's episode of the Sports Stove Podcast brought to you by Blue Coolers and Skull Candy. The links for both of those are in the comment sections on Facebook and on Twitter, and then they'll also be in the podcast notes as we put out this recording. When we're done with it, we'll put it out on podcast version that you can get anywhere you get your podcast, and especially through Spreaker as the Sports Stove Podcast and the Belly Up Sports Network, now all on Spreaker, so you can find us there as well. I mentioned there are 3 UFC debuts coming up on the card Saturday, and all 3 of those fighters are favored in their fights coming up this weekend. So you've got one on the main card, and we will definitely talk about that here in just a second as we get to it. But that's Eliaskub Kizriev, I think is how you say that. That's a hard one for me to say down here in Kentucky. But nonetheless, he is favored in his fight over Kyle Dawkins. Then Ignacio Bahamondes is favored over John Makdessi, and Luis Saldana is favored over Jordan Griffin. All 3 doing their debuts, all 3 favored to win their fights this weekend. First fight on the main card is going to be Mike Perry versus Daniel Rodriguez. Of course, most everyone has heard of Mike Perry, and if you've been paying close attention in 2020, you've heard of Daniel Rodriguez as well. Mike Perry, his last fight was a unanimous decision loss back in November to Tim Means. His last win was back in the summer, June of 2020, and that was a unanimous decision win over Mickey Gall as well. Mike Perry coming into this fight against Daniel Rodriguez at plus 145 underdog. Daniel Rodriguez is the minus 170 favorite. He's 3-1 in 2020 with wins over Tim Means, Gabe Green, and Dwight Grant. His loss that he got in 2020 was against Nick Dalby. And so you heard it there. Daniel Rodriguez has a win over Tim Means. Mike Perry's last fight was a loss to Tim Means. Platinum Perry has been one of those guys that typically people are high on. He's definitely had a good career for the most part. I believe he's 7-7 in the UFC. I didn't write that down, but hopefully that's correct. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But nonetheless, getting a hold of Harry here real quick. Sorry about that. Daniel Rodriguez, that 3-1 again at the -170 favorite. This is, in my opinion, is a fight that Mike Perry is not going to win. I don't think he has the ability in this fight. Obviously, he has a chance to win at +145. He's not a major dog, but nonetheless, we're going to lean with the favorite here in that first fight on the main card. Daniel Rodriguez stepping in against Mike Perry, getting the win there in the first fight. Then the second fight of the night on the main card is Nina Ansarov and Mackenzie Dern. Ansarov has not fought since 2019. Of course, she's 6 months removed from having a child. You have to wonder how much that's going to affect her in the fight process and getting ready. I asked my wife before tonight, how hard is it to have a baby and then be in fighting condition in 6 months? And the way that she punched me in that first 6 months, I didn't think it was too big of a deal, but I'm kidding, of course. Obviously, though, it'll be interesting to see how Ansarov comes in this fight. She'll be prepared. She'll be ready. But you cannot pretend that 6 months ago having a baby is not going to affect her in this fight. Her last fight in 2019, by the way, was her first loss as a pro, and Tatiana Suarez, unanimous decision loss to her. Mackenzie Dern comes in. She's actually the underdog in this fight. Ansarov's at -130, Dern at +110. Dern has 3 wins in 2020. She's 10-1 as a professional. Ansarov coming in, she does a great job with keeping her opponents at distance. She uses her lead leg to kind of keep that distance, kind of jabs with her lead leg. It's a kick, obviously, but keeping that distance, keeping the opponents off of her, and then the opportunity then to control the fight, to have it the way that she wants it to go. And nonetheless, she is coming in at the -130 favorite. Mackenzie Dern, very active in 2020 at +110. This is a hard pick for me to fight, a hard fight for me to pick. And I was really leaning towards Dern. But if you look at Ansarov's history, who she's fought against, the talent that she has, obviously her partner is the champ, the double champ, and so in Nunes, and so you have to assume that she's going to be dialed in, as we saw Nunes was dialed in her fight as well. But Ansarov, of course, a little bit different situation than Nunes is, but nonetheless, still coming off of first child. So we're going to give this one to Ansarov. We're going to lean that direction. Her first fight back as the favorite here. Third fight of the night is going to be Julian Marquez versus Smiling Sam Alvey. Alvey coming off of 4 losses. His last 2 fights were split decision. He had a split decision loss to Ryan Spann. He actually had a draw his last fight, split decision draw against Da Un Jung. Julian Marquez, his last fight was an Anaconda choke round 3 victory over Maki Patoli back in February. Marquez comes in as a -190 favorite. And this will be one of 2 dogs that we're picking tonight. We're going to go with Sam Alvey on this one. Sam is a guy that always puts in the work. He's always prepared. The talent that he's fought versus the talent that Marquez has fought, the experience that's here as well. It's hard. It's hard to pick against someone you like, and I like Sam Alvey, and so maybe it's not the smartest move in the world, but Sam Alvey's at +160 as the underdog, Julian Marquez at -190, and so we're going to lean with Sam Alvey in this one. Go with the underdog pick here, and plenty of value there as well. The last 2 fights for Alvey being split decision just show you how close he was to getting back on the winning track. And I think he's going to do it this weekend against Julian Marquez. Fourth fight of the main card is Kyle Daukaus, and he's going up against the UFC debut, Eliaskub Kizraev. I'm not sure how you say that name, so I apologize to him and anyone else that's offended by me missaying his name. Daukaus, his first UFC win was his last fight in November, unanimous decision victory. Kizraev is known for his round 1 finishes. His last fight was a round 1 win in 50 seconds. He has 5 finishes in his professional 13-0 career that ended in under 1 minute in the first round. So he is obviously very solid. He is the -125 favorite. Kyle Daukaus the plus 100 dog in this fight. This is going to be an entertaining fight. Honestly, it's going to be an entertaining card. I think every single one of these main card fights are going to be really intriguing. Even if they go the distance, I think they're going to stay active, and I believe they're going to entertain the fans all along the way. This one, we're going to go with the UFC debut in Kizraev and let him. That's our pick for that win there at the minus 125 favorite as well over Kyle Dawkins. The co-main event, I believe, may be the most entertaining fight of the night. Arnold Allen is going up against Sodiq Yusuff. Arnold Allen, 7-0 in the UFC. His last fight was a unanimous decision win against Nick Lentz. That was back in January of 2020. Yusuff's last fight was also a unanimous decision win in January of 2020 against Andre Fili. He is 4-0 in his UFC career as well. Yusuff, the minus 140 favorite over Arnold Allen, who's the plus 110 dog. And so we will see how that one turns out. Two undefeated guys in the UFC, two risers in the UFC as well. We're going to go with the power in this one. I'm going to lean towards Sodiq Yusuff. I believe his all-around style, his power, his ground game is all together just as better than Arnold Allen's fight style at the very least. So I'm going to go with the favorite in this one as well at minus 140, Sodiq Yusuff. The main event Saturday on UFC on ABC2, Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland. Now, Darren Till was supposed to be here. The thought was if Darren Till won this fight, he was going to get a chance at the title. Obviously, the broken collarbone takes him out of that opportunity, and he will not have that chance, of course, on Saturday. Kevin Holland coming in on 17 days ago, as of this recording, I believe, was his last fight against Derek Brunson, where he lost by unanimous decision. That was on March the 20th, just last month. Marvin Vettori comes in on a 4-fight win streak. His last fight was against Jack Hermanson, unanimous decision win. He was 2-0, Marvin Vettori was, in the year 2020. He comes in with a pretty big favorite here, minus 325 for Vettori. Kevin Holland at plus 250 in this fight. I think one thing you always have to watch for when you're picking fights is you have to think about the last fight, right? If a fighter's coming off of a big knockout where they got knocked out, you're going to assume there's going to be some at least a little bit of lag time there. Maybe it takes them some time to get going here or whatever it may be. Kevin Holland is coming off an embarrassing fight, one in which he looked horrible, and he faced a lot of criticism for it. If you've listened to Kevin Holland talk leading up now to this fight on Saturday, you can understand that he realizes the mistakes he made, not just in fighting, but his in-between rounds action. He's not afraid to talk, but he has made mention a few times now this week of the fact that, you know what, in between rounds, I'm going to be listening to my coaches. Obviously, he was not doing that against Derek Brunson. And so now Kevin Holland comes in, I believe, focused. And I think when you have a top-tier fighter coming off an embarrassing loss, that he is his most dangerous at that point. So I believe Kevin Holland is primed for an upset over Marvin Vettori this weekend. Holland is plus 250 at the moment in this fight as an underdog. But again, coming off the embarrassing loss to Derek Brunson and hearing him talk about the understanding of the mistakes that he made. So it's one thing if you make mistakes and you refuse to admit you made mistakes, that you just kind of brush it off as nothing. He understands the mistakes he made. He understands that he wasn't focused. And nonetheless, Kevin Holland is willing to step up on basically 3 weeks' notice to step in on a main event on ABC to fight Marvin Vettori, who is a very dangerous fighter as well, and someone who is vastly on the rise in the UFC. And most people are saying, yeah, Vettori, he's got this one relatively easy. I disagree with that. I'm picking Kevin Holland in this fight. And I lost a lot of respect for Kevin Holland in this last fight, the camp leading up, and how everything went down. I was really disappointed by everything that happened there. It's not that he lost that's the disappointment. It's the way everything went down that was disappointing. He is out to prove that he is one of the better fighters in the UFC. He's out to prove that he deserves opportunities against good names, big names, high-ranked opponents, and things like that. And it's going to start with a fight against Marvin Vettori on Saturday. He's going to come out with something to prove, and I believe Kevin Holland is going to prove that he was just had a really, really bad fight there in his last fight against Derek Brunson. We were supposed to be joined by UFC heavyweight Harry Hunsucker, and it looks like we have gotten stood up today by Harry. He's busy. I know he was going to be doing some work today and was going to join us during a break in between classes that he was doing, but at this point, it looks like we're not going to get him on for today. Harry Hunsucker, he announced after his last fight against Bam Bam Tuivasa that he had earned a UFC contract. He had stepped up on 4 days' notice to fill in and fight Tuivasa, and he had no chance, in my opinion, to beat him, especially on 4 days' notice. He comes in, he takes some low leg kicks early that looked like it crippled him. I was hoping to talk to him about that. He got some big licks in on Tuivasa before ultimately Tuivasa knocked him out. TKO stoppage there in that fight. But he was starting his preparation for a full fight camp and a chance to get to the UFC cage octagon with a full fight camp under his belt, and just found out yesterday that he is going to have to get surgery on some injuries that he has. He's got a broken thumb, UCL tear as well, and so he's going to have to get surgery on that. The recovery for the surgery, they're saying, is 3 to 4 months, I believe, and so that's going to put his debut, or his second opportunity there in the octagon is now going to be pushed back a little ways because of that. We'll give it just a second and see if he's able to come, and I'll get you the exact what he says here. Let's see here. So, yeah, left thumb has a break where the bone is completely detached, and his UCL ligament is completely torn and retracted. So the surgery to repair it and recovery time, they said, is about 3 to 4 months. And then as soon as he can, he will get back to business there and going from there to see if he can get himself a decent matchup. I'd like to see him fight Jared Vanderaa again. That's who he fought on Dana White Contender Series on 2 days' notice. He came into that fight and nearly knocked out Vanderaa in the first 2 minutes of that fight. And then he just had no cardio because of the 2 days' notice to get prepared for that fight. And sadly, that one did not end well. Basically, Vanderaa, who outweighed him, the last 3 fights that Harry Hunsucker has fought, he's been outweighed by a ton. Against Vanderaa, I think it was a 20 or 30 pound weight difference. Then he fought Corey Moon, I think, as a heavyweight champion in MMA regional circuit, and he knocked him out. He knocked Moon out, but Moon outweighed him by a ton as well. And then he comes up against Bam Bam Tuivasa, and I believe Hunsucker weighed in at 240 something, and Bam Bam was at 265, somewhere in that range as well. So he's been outweighed in his last 3 fights, and of course in those fights he's 1-2, but he almost knocked out Vanderaa, and he did beat Moon, but Bam Bam Tuivasa was just a little too much. We are trying to reach out one more time to Harry, and we'll see if he can get on with us here. I'd like for you to hear him. He's a great guy. He is. We live just down the road from each other, and so we've had a chance to get to know him just a little bit at this point. Still getting to know him as we speak. But nonetheless, UFC on ABC2 this weekend, Saturday, headline Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland, a good card. Those other debuts, 3 debuts. The other debuts are Ignacio Bahamondes. He is minus 190 to beat John Makdessi. We're going to take him in that one as well. Luis Saldana is a minus 140 favorite over Jordan Griffin. We'll take him also. So we'll take all of the UFC debuts fighters to win this Saturday on ABC. An exciting time for sure for the UFC. Of course, they just signed the new deal with Venom, or that officially went into effect. They came out today with the new fight gear and jackets and shorts and all the other things that came down with that as well. They have all that out on their social media pages for you to see there for you also. we're giving Harry Hunsucker just a minute. Like I said, he was going to be in between stuff, and now with the surgery and stuff, I'm not sure exactly what all went down with him there. And it looks like we're going to miss out on him this week, so maybe we can get him on again next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to see him here. He's a great conversation, a great story that he has as well. And so I would like for you all, if you don't already know it, I'd like for you to hear it also. But it looks like we're going to be out of time with Mr. Hunsucker, and so we'll have to wait around and hopefully get with him here pretty soon in the coming days. So each week, the plan is the Sports Stove podcast is going to be putting out a UFC edition every week. We're working on getting different guests and things on for you, people on for you to talk to and give you great insight on the UFC, maybe some Bellator guests as well. We're working on different things right now. So we're going to plan to put out this podcast each week here around Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, depending on what the week puts out for us. But the plan is we'll go ahead and get these out for you early in the week so you have plenty of time to get ready for the cards on Saturday. So again, the Sports Stove podcast, you can find it anywhere that you get your regular podcasts. We're going to try to go live every week right here around Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll put it out on social media so you know, and give you a preview of the fights ahead for the weekend and have great guests on along the way as well. We are on the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. You can find more information at bellyupsports.com. There on bellyupsports.com, you're going to find other podcasts, none as good as this one, but still great podcasts there on bellyupsports.com, as well as you're going to find articles from every different sports angle, and you're going to find a lot of great merchandise and things like that on bellyupsports.com. And then we've also recently partnered with Spreaker, so you can find all our podcasts as well as all the other Belly Up Sports podcasts on Spreaker now as well. Today's episode of the Sports Stove podcast is brought to you by Blue Coolers and by Skull Candy. Both of those sponsors' links are posted in the comment sections of both the Twitter and Facebook feeds. But nonetheless, we will have on the podcast notes those links as well. So if you're going to go to Blue Coolers and Skull Candy, if you'd please use our links, we'd greatly appreciate it and show the support for the information there. Like I said, we're going to have guests on throughout the day. We're going to have different writers. We're going to have different content creators. Jay Henry, a guy that we met recently, he was on the other MMA show that I hosted, the Belly Up MMA show. And we'll have him on here in the next coming weeks as well. We've got fighters that we're working on getting lined up. We're getting some other writers as well. Don't want to mention names because we haven't confirmed dates with them yet. So we're going to get all that taken care of for sure as well. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I'm sorry that we couldn't make it happen with Harry Hunsucker. Not sure exactly what happened, but I'm sure he's got a lot going on right now. So hopefully we'll get him back on for you. It was not false advertisement, I promise. We were scheduled to do it, and it just did not work out for tonight. So we'll have him on. Otherwise, I hope that you can enjoy the fights this weekend. UFC on ABC, the second time there. Kevin Holland, Marvin Vettori. We called 2 underdog picks this week. Kevin Holland was one of them, and Smiling Sam Alvey the other. So you can feel free to post your comments on who you think is going to win those fights and all the other fights this weekend as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sports Stove podcast, the UFC edition. And stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast, rate and review, all those good things. We've got a lot of good stuff right now. We're going over the NFL draft. During our regular episodes, we're giving the preview over those picks. We've already done picks 1 through 8. Of course, we did that before the Sam Darnold trade. So in our next podcast episode, when we do picks 9 through 16, we'll go back and recap some things there with those trades and everything that happened. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sports Stove Podcast UFC edition. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.